kind of the basic responsibilities we have is real estate deal making and lease negotiation, market analytics, managing our portfolio, also responsible for constructions. I really want to know who we're dealing with before we sign a lease. That's a long-term financial commitment, and it's a long-term business relationship. So we branded every Bealls outlet and Burke's outlet stores, and everything became Bealls. And then we took our Bealls store chain, which is exclusively here in Florida, renamed that Bealls Florida. Obviously a major project. It was, at the time, it was probably the largest rebranding going on in American retail. And when I interviewed here, it was very palpable that it was a different kind of culture. You know, us working on our values and working on ourselves has made the culture even better. And that has probably been like the most monumental thing for me, is being involved in the present. For me, that has been life-changing.
So yeah, tell me about yourself, Wade. Where are you from, actually? Where were you born? Where were you raised?
I was born in Wisconsin.
Okay.
Actually.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Cool. Cool.
A little town called Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Is that where the brand came from?
That's where the brand came from.
Really?
Yeah. That's where the name came from.
Okay. So you've been in retail since birth.
Pretty much.
Kinda. Yeah. All right. All right. Very good. So, what was childhood like?
Childhood, my parents did a little moving around with my dad's career. We, as I said, started out in Wisconsin. We then moved to Michigan for a little bit, and we lived in Iowa and Kentucky, and then we were back to Wisconsin, where I went to high school and college.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
You play any sports? You do anything?
Yeah, I was very active as a youngster on swim team. And then in high school in track and cross country, and continued that in college. And then when I was in college, I kind of took those sports, and that kind of led me to triathlon, and I competed in that sport for quite a while. So,
yeah, I always see you walking. When I'm outside walking, jogging, I always see you flying by me on a bike, going 20 miles per hour the other direction. So it's always good. I know that you stay active, and that's super important, obviously. Yeah. Yeah, well, cool. Well, good. So now you, where were you in your career before you joined Bealls?
I was the head of the real estate department for a private equity firm called Salon Lofts, which is a leased salon suite concept that Raymond James had bought an interest in. So they brought me in there to grow that brand, and with the idea of a sale or public offering.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where'd you go from there?
Where did I go from there? I went to Bealls from there.
Okay, straight to Bealls.
Yeah.
So how long were you there?
I was there 2 years. Yeah. Prior to that, I was with Dick's Sporting Goods, and not only worked on Dick's Sporting Goods, but also helped launch the Field and Stream concept that we launched while I was there, which was a lot of fun. And did work with the other concepts like True Runner and Golf Galaxy while I was there. The bulk of my career was really with Lowe's Home Improvement. I spent 17 years at Lowe's, and just kind of had was given increasing responsibility for more difficult territories as a deal maker. Was what I was at Lowe's.
And currently, you are the Senior Vice President of Real Estate at Bealls.
That is correct. Yes. Yeah.
So, what does that entail? What are your day-to-day operations and activities?
The kind of the basic responsibilities we have is real estate deal making and lease negotiation, market analytics. I actually got my start in the business on the research and analytics side when I was with Macy's and JCPenney. So I always felt that was a kind of a good background, because that's, it's fundamental understanding your guests and where they live to make good investment decisions. And then we also do managing our portfolio. We have 650 stores, and in a given year, usually we'll have 100 stores come up for renewal. So that's a big part of what we do, is managing that process. I'm also responsible for construction. So that's construction of new stores, relocations, remodels, and sometimes one-off projects like the rebranding that we did a few years ago. And then more recently, the last couple of months, we've taken on responsibility for the retail store maintenance facility. So it's been kind of a nice mixture of different activities that keeps the group pretty busy.
Yeah, you got a lot going on for sure.
Yeah.
So when you talk about lease renewals, you're talking about describe like a traditional lease and when a store might come up for renewal, what that means.
So 99% of our stores are leased properties, and typically they're on like a 10-year lease, and then after the initial 10-year term, we have generally options to renew, typically for 5 years. So any time that we come to a lease action, whether it's a renewal or some type of other lease event, gives us an opportunity to talk to the landlord and evaluate the situation to go forward.
Yeah. Yeah, very good. And so obviously you're not renewing leases where the stores are underperforming, and you are renewing leases where stores are doing great.
Yes, occasionally we'll have stores where the store is not doing well, and we'll work out an agreement with the landlord to make it more feasible for us to renew. So we do that, and that's been a big benefit for us because personally, I'd like to close as few stores as possible. Yeah. So anytime we get cooperation with a landlord on an underperforming store to give it some life and get it back on track, that's always our goal.
For sure, yeah. But you're not just waiting until the option for renewal comes due. You guys are actually going in and attempting to renegotiate throughout the life of the lease.
Yeah, so usually we're out 6 months to a year in advance of the notice date, and the notice date's usually about 6 months before the actual expiration. And so that's when we have the conversations with the landlord. And I've got a person on our team that's she's just exclusively focused to that, and she's gotten some really good results financially for the company as a result.
Yeah, she's fantastic. What has been what has it been like to take hold of the maintenance function from Bealls? Where did that come from, and then coming over to you, what have been the big learnings, and what do you see as the opportunities?
Well, without getting into the
I guess first,
nitty-gritty of it.
What is the maintenance function?
Yeah, so the maintenance is anything that is our responsibility to take care of in a store. So that's mostly things on the inside of the store. So that would be the interior plumbing, wall systems, ceiling tiles, floor coverings, wall systems, just anything. Things on the outside of the store are typically landlord responsibility, and so I have a property manager that deals with the landlords to ensure that they fulfill their obligations on the maintenance of things that are their responsibility, and that's typically the roof. Sometimes it's the rooftop units that supply the heating and air conditioning, and then anything outside like the parking lot, and the parking lot lights, and pylon signage, anything like that. So we either get the landlord to do that work, or sometimes if it's more expeditious, we'll do the work and get reimbursed from the landlord on that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and what's it been like taking over that function?
Taking over the function, it's been really interesting. It's what I really am looking forward to. I see a really big opportunity for us to save some money doing that. Making the process more efficient, and making the process a lot more collaborative with our store teams, because they're the ones that are out there, dealing with the issues, and just having them have a more visibility to where things are. Like, for example, if we have to order a new rooftop unit for air conditioning, there might be a lead time on that. So, just communicating that this has been ordered, this is how long it's going to take, this is when it's going to be completed, just to have, so they understand what's going on with their store.
Where is this completely new to you, or have you had this in your past, this function?
It's pretty new.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it's kind of related to construction, a lot of the same kind of principles, but it's a little different.
So are you learning about it through obviously just logic and learning the function itself and internally talking to people, but is there an external maybe retailer that you can look at as best in practice, or someone who really has their operations, finely tuned and well managed that you can learn from?
Yeah, well, we're pretty, like I said, we're 2 months into it, so it's pretty new. So we have done some store tours of our stores and other stores to see like how we stack up in terms of the appearance and maintenance of our stores. There's definitely some opportunity, lots of opportunity for us to make the stores look better, for us to save money while we do that, and for us to just be more open and communicative with the store teams during the process.
What's it like? That's the internal component of it, and then you mentioned the external component of it is more dealing with the landlords. So what is it like dealing with the landlords? You've got, I'm sure the vast majority of them are phenomenal people, easy to deal with. Maybe we talk about some of the challenges and kind of what that looks like from a retailer standpoint, though.
Yeah, I will refrain from like naming any specific landlords.
Yeah,
but
good.
By and large, I would say 90% of our landlords are very responsive and fulfill their obligations under the lease to maintain our premises. We have that maybe 10% that are slow or, just they're trying to save money, and then we really have to hound them. So that can range from us just exercising our self-help. We give the landlord an opportunity per our lease. They've got 30 days to take corrective action. If they don't do that, then we can step in and then get reimbursed by the landlord for that. Sometimes it's a situation where that's not practical to do. It's something with a roof, and it's the roof for the entire shopping center, so we can't just replace our section. So those tend to be a little more challenging, and we've had some extended conversations with landlords to get to where we need to be at the end of the day. But we always manage to get there one way or another. Yeah.
650 stores, approximately how many landlords do we have?
So we have, believe it or not, it's over 400 individual landlords. Yeah. So that's a lot of business relationships to manage.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
How do you do that? How does that start? I mean, like, what does that look like? It really starts at the beginning when the deal makers negotiate a deal. I'm always very interested in if it's a big landlord, one of the publicly traded REITs like a Brixmor, Site Centers, or a private company like Benderson that we deal with a lot. We know who we're dealing with and we know what to expect. But if it's a local one-off investor that's not really in the business, but it's just an investment for them, I really want to know who we're dealing with before we sign a lease and just get a little more information on that. Because I think that's where it starts, is because, we sign these things. We typically do a 10-year primary term, and then we'll have a series of 5-year options. So we might have 35 to 50 years. So potentially, that's a long-term financial commitment, and it's a long-term business relationship. So that's why we want to know who we are dealing with. Yeah. What would you guess the ratio is between little guys, mom and pops, and like either national or large private, like a Benderson?
For us, and I think it's just this is a product of the type of markets that we're in. We're in a lot of smaller markets that tend to be individuals. So I'm going to say it's about 65% small individual landlords.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, one of the other things that you mentioned was this rebrand that we've gone through. Can you explain the rebrand, and then maybe I'll follow that up with a question or two? Yeah,
that was a very exciting project for us. Our company knows this. Maybe a lot of the audience doesn't know this, but for years we were not able to use our Bealls name in most of the states that we operated in because of a trademark with Stage Stores. And when they liquidated in 2020, of course, we bought the intellectual property. So then we owned the Bealls name nationwide. And a couple of years ago, we embarked on rebranding of all the stores. So we branded every Bealls Outlet and Burke's Outlet stores, got rid of the word outlet, got rid of the word Burke's, and everything became Bealls. And there was great benefits from a marketing standpoint, the uniformity of the chain. The signage just looks a lot crisper and cleaner having Bealls versus trying to put extra letters on. And when you're trying to fit on a sign face, we can make the letters bigger, so it's much more bolder branding. So that was our almost 600 Bealls stores that we did. And then we took our Bealls store chain, which is exclusively here in Florida. As you know, we renamed that Bealls Florida, and so we did those 67 stores as well. So it was a big project, 660 some stores that we rebranded over a period of about a year and a half.
Yeah. Most people probably know the Bealls stores as Bealls department stores. They still, I think that's something that everybody is kind of still holding on to, that even when I'm talking about Bealls or, formerly Bealls Outlet, everybody still kind of says Bealls department stores. But yeah, that rebrand was designed to hopefully lessen the confusion. But yeah, now we do 80% of our business out of Bealls, formerly Bealls Outlet and Burke's Outlet, and now it's just Bealls is where 80% of our business is coming from. And then 20% of our business is coming from Bealls Florida, just within the state of Florida, and formerly known as Bealls department stores. But with the one Bealls, the consolidation and the move towards everyday value and lack of sales, it's really kind of blending together now. It feels like we're coming together as a team, as a corporate team, as a store team, as an operations team, and there's less and less distinction between red Bealls with a little b and blue Bealls with a big B. So it's been fun to kind of see that evolution take place over the last couple of years.
Yeah, it really has. And just even in my tenure here, everything was really separated and a little bit siloed when I first got here. Bealls Stores was its own division. They even had their own real estate function on that side of the business. And then Bealls Outlet was a business unit, and then we had Bealls Inc. And so, under your leadership, we've become one Bealls and really reaped a lot of benefits from that unification of the company.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's been great to come together. There's less internal competition. We really shouldn't be competing with ourselves, with our sister company. And so yeah, that process of becoming one Bealls and really trying to become the best version of ourselves that we can be, and worry about competing with other people as opposed to ourselves, has been really fantastic to see the organization come together. So. Yeah. I think in time it'll make more sense to more people. There's always been some confusion between the two brands, whether it's Bealls Outlet and Bealls department stores, or today Bealls and Bealls Florida. There's probably still going to continue to be some confusion, but I think over time that goes away. Mm-hmm. So excited about that. Well, what was your... that was obviously a company-wide rebrand where, there was a marketing component to it. But you guys really spearheaded the component that involved all of the changing of the signs and all of that. Can you walk me through your role in that rebrand? Yeah.
So obviously a major project. It was at the time it was probably the largest rebranding going on in American retail, with over 650 stores being rebranded. When we initiated the project, we realized we need some more help on the sign vendor side. So we did a RFP, and we brought on 4 new sign vendors. So we had a total of 5 sign vendors at the time to help us execute this process. So that's kind of where we started, getting the resources lined up, and then planning it, planning how we were going to do it, and which is, it takes some planning because we have stores in all kinds of different climates. So we wanted to make sure that we did the work in the northern climates during the warmer months, because we had to, when we remove an old sign, we have to resurface and paint before we put the new sign on. So that had to be done during certain weather conditions. So we phased it with, we started up north during the warmer months and then went south during the winter months where the weather was still nice, like here in Florida. Yeah. And like I said, it was about 18 months in total, and we got every single store rebranded.
Yeah, it was a monumental effort, and it took a heck of a lot of organization and just follow through and support from you guys and your team. It was really, really well handled. So again, I think that was a huge accomplishment for you guys, and it without you handling it so well, it could have been a different outcome for sure. So just keeping things on schedule, on time was really fantastic.
Yeah. It's kind of one of those projects when you take on a big project like that. Some things like that can seem overwhelming, but if you just break it down into its component pieces, it becomes much more manageable. And then at the end of the day, it just, you really get a lot of gratification that the team has accomplished something really, significant.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Something that difficult. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so we are in 23 states now, 22 states,
22
I guess
states,
it is.
yes.
Yeah. So having exited Nevada, but what has the real estate market been like for Bealls, and I guess just in general, not even for Bealls, but over the last 5 years since COVID, it would have been difficult to predict that we would be seeing today what we see in the real estate market with very high prices and very high occupancy rates, especially as e-commerce continues to rise. What has kind of been the real estate market in general over the last 5 years?
It's really about the tightest that it's ever been in my career.
Meaning?
Meaning how many years?
No, tightest. Meaning what?
Meaning tightest, the lowest available inventory. Right now, we're about 96% occupied in the U.S. in terms of retail space. We've had, coming out of COVID, it took maybe a year, and then a lot of activity with retailers wanting to open new stores and getting very active with that. All our direct competitors are opening, very significant numbers of new stores. So there's a lot of demand, and the supply has contracted because we're not seeing new inventory. We used to see a lot more new shopping center development happening, and what's happened is the feasibility of these new projects has really declined because interest rates for the loans to do these projects, and then what inflation has done to construction costs, has made new retail development at the most part not really feasible unless you can get really high rents. I mean, like maybe $50 blended for a shopping center to make sense of it. So you're still seeing some limited development occurring in Florida and Texas are the two places where you still are seeing some new development, but other than that, it's pretty scarce. So that's keeping new supply limited, and the demand remains high. So it's just simple economics, that's driving up the price of rents.
$50 per square foot for the total shopping center for it to
for
make
the total shopping center. That's a blend, of course. The large tenants are paying less, and the small tenants are paying more, but that's high by anybody's standards for an open air shopping center. Yeah.
So 96% occupancy today. Within the last 6 to 12 months, that would have been 98%. Would that have been a little bit higher than it is today?
It seems there is a lot of bankruptcy activity. There's a lot of retailers that have closed stores. Bed Bath, Tuesday Morning. And now Joanne, but because of the high demand, the space is really getting gobbled up pretty fast.
Right.
A lot of it doesn't even go to market. It just gets a lot of retailers are just going straight to bankruptcy court and taking assignment of it, which is a very capital intensive and expensive way to open a new store. But if that's what you have to do to meet your store goals that you've told Wall Street you're going to make, then that's an avenue you have to take. Yeah.
Right. What would occupancy have looked like just after COVID hit, maybe in 2020, 2021?
It was a little lower, maybe 94% is kind of what I remember about that time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then going back, 20 years, what would the low point in occupancy?
The low point probably would have been around 2009.
Yeah.
Yeah, you may have seen it like dip below 90 at one point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. It's a very competitive. Everybody, there's been talk over the years of this real estate, commercial real estate crash, and how, with the rise of the internet and everybody shifting towards online, that there was going to be pressure on the commercial real estate market, but we just haven't seen that.
Yeah, you've seen it in some sectors, right? I mean, sectors that can be easily replicated or done better online will be very affected. I mean, there's no need for like a blockbuster video anymore because Netflix and on demand has taken that away. But there's certain things, a lot of services like health and beauty, you can't get that done on the internet, right? And with our off price, we have a stickiness with that treasure hunt and with the nature of how we buy that's difficult to replicate online.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that's kind of the point. I mean, there's been so much bankruptcy. So many companies have gone bankrupt. I mean, last year it was higher than than after the Great Recession of 2008. But people, whatever industry it is, people keep going in and people keep renting the space, and it's not as if occupancy rates are going down, to 80%, to 70%, to 60%, and that commercial real estate's in trouble because it's just, what's the new industry that's coming in, whether it's, services or gyms or restaurants or, whatever it is, somebody's occupying the space. So it's definitely, and, the off-price industry is very, very healthy. So, when you look at Ross growing and TJ Maxx and Marshalls and Burlington now, all those national retailers are doing quite well and opening actually a lot of stores in core markets now, smaller markets. So, yeah, what's that been like? As they've kind of saturated these metropolitan markets, these bigger markets and bigger cities and towns, and Bealls has kind of always been this. In a lot of states, we've operated in more country, rural, what we call core markets for us. And now we're seeing a lot of competition come into those markets. Can you touch on maybe just that natural evolution of competition within the off-price world?
Yeah, so formerly, most of our direct competitors were located in the large metropolitan areas. That's where they attacked first and opened their stores. And as you know, most of them are opening 80 to 100 stores a year. They're publicly traded companies, so they're telling Wall Street. So they have to open that. So as the inventory got smaller and they couldn't fulfill that pipeline with the metropolitan markets, they had to branch out to some smaller markets. And we started seeing it a little bit before COVID, but then it really accelerated after COVID. So now we're seeing a lot of markets that previously we would have thought would have been too small for Ross or one of the TJX divisions to go in. They're now going into some of these small markets as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, competition is always going to be a thing. All we can do is be the best version of ourselves and attempt to, be as strong as we possibly can and compete with these bigger box retailers. They've got bigger budgets, bigger pens. They can write larger orders. They can, they've got all the advantages in the world. But here's little Bealls based out of Florida that's still, finding a way to compete with these guys. No. So, well, good. Tell me about your team a little bit. I'd like to hear a little bit about the real estate team and your people. What's your division like?
I've got just an absolutely great team. Really, I'm just grateful every day for the team that we have here at Bealls. It's a pretty lean team by most standards. Our competitors that we're talking to, and they probably have 5 times as many people in their real estate departments as we do. It's gotten a little bigger now because we've added a couple positions with the store maintenance function. But on the real estate deal making side, I have 4 deal makers. I have one that's based here in Florida that really handles all our concepts in Florida, where we have more stores than any state, and then I have a deal maker based in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that covers our Sunbelt West. Another deal maker based in Atlanta that covers the Southeast for us primarily, and then another person based in the Detroit metro who covers the Midwest for us. So that's what we have on the deal making side. On the construction side, I have a divisional vice president, Frank DePalma, and I've been in this business for over 30 years, and he is hands down the best head of construction I've ever had the privilege to work with. And he's assembled a very good team. He's got 3 construction project managers who are just so dedicated. These people travel more than anybody in the company. They're just constantly out, on these projects, and so that's fantastic. And then I have a portfolio manager that does the renewals for us. She's fantastic. And then I have a property manager who handles the landlord obligations for our stores. And then on the facility side, I have a senior manager of facilities, and she has 2 people reporting to her under that.
Yeah, I think Frank is my next episode, actually. So yeah, I'm talking to Frank on Friday, so I'll be able to ask him some questions as well and kind of continue this conversation. But
Frank has a lot more history. He's been with the company for well over 30 years. So
right. I think more than 35. I think
it's 38 actually.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Yeah. Good. What has it been like with the increase in cost that we're seeing? From a just globally from a construction standpoint? It's been challenging. A couple of years ago, when we had the really rapid inflation, we would, after we approved a project, we would have a budget for what the construction costs were going to be. And if we didn't get that lease negotiated in 60 days, the costs were going to be higher. So we had to, before we signed the lease, we had to relook at it to still make sense, because the costs have just gone up 20% on this thing. So they finally stabilized. They haven't gone down, but they kind of stabilized and tapered off. We weren't getting this massive increases. So when we approve a site, we know it's, by the time we sign the lease, it's still going to be the same cost. So that's been positive. But we just dealt with it, and we may have to deal with that again. I can't control what's going on in the retail environment in terms of what inventory is out there or what inflation's doing. We just react to it. Yeah, we won't even get into the inflation conversation and what's driving that, but that's been quite the roller coaster, and continues to be a roller coaster as we head into the middle part of 2025. Travel, you mentioned travel a little bit. So what's travel like for you? What kind of trade shows what kind of shows are you going to, and what does that look like?
So for the retail real estate industry, there's a major organization. It's called the ICSC, and
stands for
it. Initially, it stood for International Council of Shopping Centers, and they rebranded that several years ago, right after COVID. It now stands for Innovating Commerce Serving Communities. Same letters, but just a different meaning to it.
Nice.
Kind of, showing like a more breadth of it. It's not just the shopping center. It's about the community and its various forms of retail. So they host a lot of regional shows that are very valuable for us. It gives us the opportunity to, in a span of 1 or 2 day show, to meet with, maybe 24 landlords to like further along deals or find new opportunities. So all the deal makers are very active in ICSC, and they usually attend like probably anywhere from 3 to 5 shows a year. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, nice. Well, good. Yeah, it's that's a tremendous overview. Really appreciate it. I think very understandable and articulated quite well. So thank you. What has it been like from your standpoint, from a cultural change, standpoint over the last several years? Like what was it like when you got here, I guess, culturally, and we've always had a great culture, it feels like the company that's always been a strong point, but we've definitely undergone some changes over the last several years. So from your vantage point, what has it been like?
Yeah, so I do have a vantage point. Obviously, I was with 5 major retailers before coming to Bealls. They were all large publicly traded companies, so that was a little different coming to a private company for me. The cultures kind of varied of my previous companies, some good, some not so good. When I came to Bealls, it was just very different. When I interviewed here, it was very palpable that it was a different kind of culture. And then when I took the job and came here, it was like, wow, that was really authentic. It wasn't people just doing a dog and pony for a candidate. It was who we are. It's in our DNA. So so that was very refreshing for me. And I think what you've done with unifying the company under one Bealls and us working on our values and working on ourselves has made the culture even better. So it's I just find it's just a tremendous place to be. Yeah.
So your first retreat with us, Wade, was what year?
2023.
Okay.
So we went to Virginia, and then last year we went to Jamaica with the team.
Yep. Okay. So, and when I say retreat, just for the audience, we do a once a year senior retreat where I take the senior executive team and we go and we work on, or we talk about whatever book that we might have read to prepare to kind of facilitate a discussion around values and culture. And of course, we've got a separate retreat that we do for business strategy and whatnot, but this is really geared more towards connection and culture. Had you ever done anything like that in your past?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Okay.
It was very different,
Yeah.
very, very different, even though I wasn't part of the first two retreats, I did read the books and have the conversation, so that I made it, I think, a lot more easy for me when I did the retreat in Virginia, and the books that we read in preparation for that was much easier for me. But it's just a very unique situation to have the senior leadership of a company come together and discuss values. And what I like about it is the deeper you get into it, you realize this just helps you live your life better, makes me more effective as a leader at Bealls. And, because what we've learned is we take our egos out of the equation. And when we do that, it's, tremendous things happen.
Yeah. What were the books that we read on your first retreat?
The first retreat would have been the two Michael Singer books.
But you had already read the two Tolle books.
I read the Tolle books, and I've read three Singer books, Nick Tak Hung, the two books, and Good to Great. Yeah, so 9 books altogether.
Yeah, it was interesting. I guess just a reminder for the audience, we with the first book that we read was a business book, and it was the Good to Great book by Jim Collins. It's one of the most famous business books that ever has been written. And in that book, he let us know that the ego was the great saboteur of business and relationships in general, and it divided people, and it created toxicity and negativity. And so we took a dive into understanding what the ego was all about and attempting to see it within ourselves, and by doing that, of course, a side benefit is you can see it in other people, but for
good or bad, right?
For neither, for just what it is. But seeing it within ourselves has really, I think, caused a lot of great individual transformations to occur throughout the leadership group, and that's trickled down to other people who have attempted to practice the values that have been inspired by the books that we've read. So, what was it? What out of those books would you say for you? And I know they're all different and meaningful in different ways, but was there a single book that you read that you were like, wow, this is really life-changing?
For me, it's really a toss-up between the Eckhart Tolle books and Michael Singer. I found Michael Singer to be a little more approachable in terms of just his writing style and way of speaking. And I've listened to them quite a bit, both of them on their talks they do on YouTube and stuff like that. And But I think those two in particular just have really resonated with me. Yeah.
What have you done to attempt to practice what you've learned from those guys?
Well, the main thing is just recognizing your ego, recognizing that there's there's this voice in your head, and so when things happen in business, and there's always unexpected things happening, is that you don't react so much to the events. You kind of take them in. You accept the reality of what's happening, and then you respond accordingly. And by taking your ego out of the equation, you just make better, sound decisions that are just rational, and they're just better for the people on your team, and it's better for Bealls.
Yeah. And define ego, because I think everybody kind of has a different, when they hear the word ego, or, I think there's other words for it.
I think a lot of people think of ego as like someone that really thinks highly of themselves and they're egotistical.
Right.
That's generally where people go. For me, I guess what I learned was the ego is something that all of us have, and there, a lot of your life where you're grown up, you identify with this ego. The ego is, I'm Wade. I went to college here. I race in triathlons. I'm a real estate vice president. All these things that you identify with, and positions that you identify with, and and then you realize those things are just really your ego. They're not who you really are. And so once you can observe that in yourself, it frees you to really kind of not get so involved with that identification. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the ways that you can prove that to be the case, that those things aren't truly who you are, is take them away, and you're still there.
Yeah.
It's like what's left when you take away your identifications of job title, or societal role, or things that you identify with, like you said, attachments or whatever, or resistances. You're still there.
Yeah. Once
all those things are gone, and you've let go of them. So it's kind of that authentic self conversation versus a false self, the mind made self.
It's all these things that you've done in your life and that you identify with today, and you can make the mistake of thinking that's who you are. But if I go back to my childhood, before I was any of those things, I was still the same person.
Right.
Right. That same person was there without all those identifications.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's been pretty transformational. I think that for me, the biggest single realization or understanding or awakening or whatever you want to call it is that I am not my mind. Like, that one for me has allowed me to really take so many steps forward when you realize that I'm not the voice in the head. And I think Michael Singer did such an incredible job of explaining that in Untethered Soul. And it was really just the first 30 pages or, a couple of chapters that he talks about that. That was life-changing. That was absolutely life-changing. And it makes the Tolle books make complete sense, and it makes kind of life and this whole human experience make a lot more sense when you can realize and truly deeply understand beyond a conceptual level that I am not my mind, that I'm not the voice in the head, that's not who I am, that it's a tool. Just like we use our lungs for breathing, and our, our stomachs digest food, our mind is constantly processing information, but it's not who we are. Yeah,
and it's a great tool that we use to do what we do, but it's not really who we are. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that just helps you just stay more centered and more balanced, and not allowing yourself to get dragged into drama or things that are happening because you just don't let your ego react to things quite as much.
You're not defending a false self. You're not defending an identity, and when you defend, it comes off as attacking. It's and there's science that goes with this too. It's not just some, I think Tolle takes a spiritual approach to it, and it's I am, it's that eternal question of who am I. Tolle takes a spiritual approach to it, and that's fantastic. I think that it's hard to argue that we are life, that we are living. I mean, that's what he's saying, essentially. We're not our minds, that we are life itself. But, I think there's the science behind it of the neuroplasticity and actually rewiring your brain by being able to observe your mind. That's very real, and it's proven, and we can overcome things like addiction and mental, you won't call it mental illness anymore, but, addiction and trauma and mental turbulence. We can overcome all of that through rewiring our brain by understanding neuroplasticity and by understanding the process that it takes to get there and to really cure yourself. As opposed to taking medicine, drugs that don't work for it. We can actually do all that work by ourselves just by observing our minds. And instead of repeating those patterns and going through those patterns over and over again of the resistance and the negativity and the anger, if we can just observe the mind as it begins, then we've broken the pattern. And you can only do that if you realize that you're not your mind, and you create that separation between your true self and your mind. And I know for a lot of people, as we've dove deep into this material, it's been life-changing. It's improved their relationships, their personal relationships, their professional relationships, their self-awareness, their understanding of their true self, who they really are, as opposed to their identifications, their attachments, their addictions, their conditioning, their roles, all that stuff. So I've gotten so many letters and so many comments from so many associates that are like, wow, this is really, thank you for going down this path, and thank you for attempting to, enhance the culture through self-awareness. It's really made a big difference with a lot of people, and especially when people are dealing with loss or dealing with difficult things where their minds can go to, states of sadness, states of depression. It's been, I know, tremendously helpful for not only myself, but a lot of people throughout the organization. So it's been fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not only business, but just in your personal life. I, unfortunately, lost my father last year, and this background and working on myself really helped me to get through it and be, much more supportive of my mother and my siblings during the process, so it's
nice,
very practical application.
For sure. Well, good. No, I appreciate you sharing that. What has been one or two? Maybe just start off with one of the values for you that jumps out as meaningful and helpful for you.
Well, accountability is a huge one for me. Absolutely. We at Bealls, we think of, the way we define accountability is maybe a little bit different from how other people think. But it's that, I am accountable for my state of mind. It's not your fault if I'm, angry or feeling, mad or something. It's that's all created in me. That turbulence is coming from my mind. And so when you realize that accountability, it just helps you not get dragged into that, and just helps you be a lot more level-headed and making better decisions for your team, for Bealls.
Yeah, for sure. And you can observe it, right? I mean, once you notice that turbulence, you can observe it and then create separation from it, create space, and then try to understand why, where's it coming from? And through doing that, again, you've broken that pattern, you've broken that, that cycle of self-created turbulence, and having accountability and not saying this is somebody else's fault, but knowing that I'm creating that and it's empowering. It's very empowering to know that it's nobody else's fault, that my mental state of mind is nobody else's fault. So yeah, I'm with you. That's a big one. They're all big. In different ways.
And they all kind of work together,
Yep.
Absolutely. I think acceptance to me is also very important, and it's kind of close to accountability. And acceptance is, I guess I kind of alluded to it at the beginning when I talked about what the retail inventory is out there, what inflation is doing. I can't control that. I can't change that. So I'm accepting that. It doesn't mean that I'm not actively doing something about it, but I'm not complaining and wasting mental energy on that aspect of things. I'm focusing on being accountable and how are we going to respond to this? What's our game plan for this external event that's going on? It's as simple as that. It's the world's not out to get me. It's just what's happening.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a big one for me too. The more that I've dug deep into acceptance, for me, it's coming down to what is it that creates that negative energy or that, that resistance to the way that things are. Why can't I have acceptance for the way that things are? And the deeper I dive into it, the more I realize that it comes from judgment. That it's really and truly coming from judging things as good, bad, right, or wrong. And once you realize that I'm creating that mental and emotional disturbance because I'm judging something as bad, or I'm creating the opposite of that because I'm judging something as good and I'm attaching to it. The opposite of resistance, the opposite of negativity. Both are equally just illusory, essentially. It's ultimately at the end of the day, non-judgment and just acceptance of the way things are eliminates that drama, and it eliminates the need. We can take action, and we do take action, but we can take action without the drama that's involved. And so many other businesses and so many personal relationships, everybody feels like you've got to judge things as bad before we can take the next step. Well, we don't. We can just accept it. We can just say, this is the way that things are. Now let's make a change. We don't have to say, well, that's bad or that's wrong, and attempt to elevate our own ego, through the process of judgment. Gain moral superiority prior to making change. It's totally unnecessary and it's totally unreasonable, and it's all a part of the false self. It's interesting how each of the values has an opposite, and each and every opposite is some form of ego. It's really, that's why practicing these values really takes away that ego, because at the opposite end of the value spectrum, there is some form of ego. So. Yeah, it's been, kind of diving deep into them and learning that, realizing that it's just life-changing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, good. What did we miss, Wade? That's a great conversation, great overview on business. I know that you have dug deep into the values and into the books that we've read. You've taken it very seriously. You've without pressure, without any pushing any of the books. You've after we read them, I know that you spent a lot of time going back to them and listening to them and attempting to practice them and working on them for yourself. And so I felt like this conversation could be a little bit deeper than some of the other conversations that I've had, just because I know that you have taken whatever the word is, you've taken the reins. You've really jumped into this head first in order to attempt to gain self-awareness for yourself.
Yeah. Well, I guess it kind of is one of our values, openness, right?
Yeah.
That I was open to this, and I think most of I think our entire senior management team has been open to it. Open maybe to various degrees, but all open, and that's been helpful for us. But it's been a tremendous opportunity that you opened the door for us, and it's not only, like I said, helped me be a better leader and be a better associate for Bealls. It's also helped me with my relationships with my immediate family, my extended family, my friends, my old friends. It's kind of changed my outlook and my approach, and really, a lot of the drama I just deal with like a lot more compassion and understand, that person's putting themselves through turbulence, so you can understand that and not, engage with that as much. So I guess that's why I took to it the way I did, is because I just saw the results and I saw the transformation in myself. Not that I'm there. I don't want to say like, hey, I'm a finished product here. I still have a long way to go in many areas, but just recognizing that and making those improvements. It's kind of like Tolley says, if you wanted to run a marathon, you don't go out and try to run 26 miles your first day. You start with shorter distances and you build it up. And so that's kind of the approach I've taken. It's like, okay, I'm driving in traffic and the congestion is not my preference now, but I just kind of have to accept this. And once you work on little things, then you can work on bigger things,
Yeah, well said. Yeah. It's like the present moment is always there and it's always available, even in traffic. You can find the present moment and get out of your mind and get out of the resistance that you have to whatever situation just by observing it, just by observing your mind and being there.
I'm glad you brought that up about it being present in the moment. That has probably been like the most monumental thing for me, is being involved in the present, because so much of the turbulence that we as humans cause for ourselves is we're remembering something from the past that we can't let go of and that we're holding on to, or we're anxious about something in the future that hasn't even happened yet. And if we're in either of those two spectrums, we have this beautiful moment in front of us that we're not going to embrace and enjoy and do the best we can at. So for me, that has been life-changing.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, same here. And I'm not always in the present moment, but I'm there a lot more often than I used to be. And just, as soon as I catch my mind going to past or future unnecessarily, from a sometimes reflecting on the past is fantastic, but a lot of times we do it from a point of creating sadness for no reason and just missing out on the beautiful moment that's in front of us, or going to the future and having anxiety or fear. We're creating that turbulence.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's how frequently do you see either yourself or other people remembering something from the past and they're getting angry about it? It's like, gosh, that happened 10 years ago. And you're making yourself angry about it again.
Right. Yeah, bringing toxicity into the present moment. Yeah, for sure. No, it's super interesting, and it's like you say. I mean, it's not right or wrong. It's not good or bad to be in the past, to be in the future, to be in the present. It just is, and we get the choice, and it's a practice. It's everyday life gives us an opportunity to practice these things, like accountability, like acceptance, like openness, like transparency, like compassion, like all of these values that we have. It's not as if we're there or that we ever get there. It's the practice of attempting to practice the values and to try to be the most self-aware version of yourself, to try to be the best version of yourself that you can possibly be. Life is constantly giving us opportunities to practice, and we feel that when we create mental disturbance, and we feel that when we have resistance to a situation, and we feel that when we it's daily, and it's constant, and the more we can break those cycles, the more we can really discover our authentic self.
And all those events that happen, you can really look at those as being those are opportunities for you to grow, really. Those are challenges. I'll go back to like the physical analogy. You lift weights, it's a little painful. You get sore afterwards, but guess what? Your body adapts and grows as a result of that. And the same thing happens with your mind when you aren't creating that turbulence for yourself.
Right. Part of your true authentic self is a contemplator. We took a test within the last couple of years called Life Languages, which I think does actually a really good job of helping us understand who we truly are at our cores, and kind of how we work and how we operate. And I'm a contemplator. One of my sons is a contemplator. It's when life hits you with a situation or a question, it just means that you're not reactively, instinctually coming up with a response or an answer, just shooting straight from your mind. You actually have to. You don't have to, but you end up thinking about it and trying to think about it from different angles, and ultimately, of course, we have to make a decision. But I think that you being a contemplator, me being a contemplator, for me anyway, it's helped kind of look at situations from a 360-degree angle and attempt to make non-reactive decisions, but decisions that are well thought out and takes into account different perspectives. What are your thoughts on being a contemplator and has that always been a part of who you are, do you think?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. When I was earlier in my career, I got feedback. I might be like in a meeting with senior management. It's like, you're not answering the question right away. They ask a question, and it's like there's a pause before you answer that. Why is that? It's like, well, that was a complicated question. I'm thinking of all the things. I'm not just like reacting to it. Initially I thought that was something I needed to work on, but no, that's just the way I communicate. And so that's been helpful for me to understand that. And
so they didn't want you to think.
Well, let's spit that answer out right now.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. So I don't know. So that's all I know. That's my communication style. I think that style, and I could be wrong on this, maybe that helps me with acceptance and accountability more, because I'm not just immediately responding to things. Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, it takes away part of that reactivity, and reactivity can be positive or negative, but it's typically one or the other. So yeah, it seems like the more we can pause and take a breath, the more authentic our response is going to be. So. Don't lose that, and don't let people try to change who you are. I think you're past that in your career at this point.
Past that in my career, yeah.
Well, good. Well,
and it's really, I think, been valuable that our whole senior leadership team and even levels down have done that. When you have that visibility, I think that helps you communicate with people, right? Because you understand, that's their communication style. So it helps you be more compassionate, understanding of where people are coming from.
Yep, for sure. Well, good. Yeah, it's excellent conversation, Wade. I really enjoyed it. Did we miss anything?
I don't know. We've talked for a little while.
About an hour, I guess.
Okay.
So. It
went by fast, actually.
It did. Yeah. It always does in here. It's like a time warp. I'll have a 4-hour podcast and it'll feel like 45 minutes. But I really appreciate your time, Wade. Appreciate your insights. Appreciate what you're doing from a company standpoint and helping the company grow and making great decisions, logical decisions, helping our real estate portfolio, but leading a team as well that's a very, very talented team. Got a lot of good people within the real estate division. You haven't had any turnover to speak of in the last 3 or 4 years, and so I think that just really speaks to the quality of your leadership in that group and the fact that you are intentional. You're open, you're transparent, you do practice the values, and you're really, you're there for your people. You can listen to your people, and I think that's critical. That's what we need out of our leaders. And so, you're just a true champion of the culture. So I very much appreciate what you're doing and the way that you go about leading your business. And it shines through with your people as well. So it's a great division, it's a great group, and I know that it's experienced a lot of success, and I know that'll continue. Yeah. So appreciate what you're doing.
Well, thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate that, and I particularly appreciate the part about you being able to see that through my team. That's really very meaningful for me.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, very good, Wade. We'll wrap it up with that, man. I really appreciate you.
Okay. Yep. Thanks.